6:02, we'll call the meeting to order.
So the introduction of members, we should go around
Okay.
around the table, and then Jean knows who's here. Okay.
Okay. Call to order, CCP members, Dean Nason, CCP.
Jason Porter, CCP. James Porter, CCP.
Chuck Braddock, Harbor Commission.
Chris LaRose, Norwich Public Utilities.
Deanna Rhodes, Director of Planning for the city.
Dan Deniska, City Planner.
Regan or Pat?
All right, I'll jump on. Sorry, I couldn't see the room. Hi, everybody. Regan Minor, Norwich Historic District Commission and Norwich Historical Society.
Pat McLaughlin, Director of Public Works.
Vanessa?
The minutes from October 13th is a typo on the agenda that says the 12th, 2021.
Here, let's see if we even have anyone up here, people here to do this.
Chris was here, Regan was here, Tucker was here.
All right. I don't know if that's enough for the minutes, but should we want to
Three.
table it? It's 3 out of the committee is huge.
Maybe.
Yeah. How large is it?
Probably 13.
Yeah,
Right.
something like that. So we probably should wait. Do you want to table that to the next meeting?
Okay, we'll table reading the minutes the next meeting.
Okay.
You need one of them?
You can't vote on because you only have a few people that were here, and we have such a large group that other members, so we don't have a quorum to like vote on.
Technically, you don't have to be there at that meeting to vote on the minutes to the meeting if you read them,
This is true.
technically.
So do you want to take care of it instead?
Yeah, let's take
Okay,
care of it.
All right.
That's all right.
So someone needs to make a motion.
I'll make a motion that we accept the minutes from the previous meeting.
For a second.
This is Jason, I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Pat?
Yes.
So yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, you're good.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Old business, none. New business, introduction and updates from committee members.
So I'll first open this up. So the city adopted a new plan of conservation and development August of 2023. This is our first meeting for the implementation committee for this new plan. The previous is a 10-year plan of conservation and development. The previous plan expired in 2023. The implementation committee started about in 2017 or so. It was I had been here for about a year and said, what's happening? We didn't have an implementation committee moving along and doing anything with it, which is partly required in your POCD because you have goals and strategies that you need to try to meet. So what we thought we'd do first is before we go around and start talking about the short-term goals and the ongoing goals is that we would do the introduction and updates from committee members of anything that they've been working on, whether that's an ongoing thing that's in the POCD or just share what's happening, regarding short-term goals and things, because there was participation of many of the people who are in this room on this plan. So anyone like to start? Regan, do you want to start?
I'm trying to remember what is our action items, so I apologize for not totally remembering.
But I can bring them up too. So we're gonna go through each page. So if you want to do a general thing right now, and then we'll get to your items.
Sure. So I guess I'll start with just the Historic District Commission. So one of the things that the Historic District Commission is doing as of right now is we're continuing to review certificate of appropriateness applications that come in for the commission. And the Historic District Commission's purview is within the 2 local historic districts, Little Plain and Norwich Town. And so we are reviewing any applications that come in for exterior changes to those properties, privately owned or even publicly owned. So we're maintaining that status quo. We're also looking into, in the future, working on revitalizing our signage program. We had stopped it a couple years ago just due to budget constraints, and looking to want to revitalize that moving forward. So that's something the commission's talking about. Regarding the Norwich Historical Society, we have a lot of plans happening right now. We're gearing up for the season opening of the Dr. Daniel Lathrop Schoolhouse, which will be on May 4th. In addition to the other museum properties that we work with, including the Joseph Carpenter Silversmith Shop at Leffingwell House Museum. They're all opening for the spring season, Leffingwell April 20th, and then the other two properties on May 4th. So gearing up for all of those events and programs, and also thinking towards the future regarding Walktober in the fall, and also thinking even further in the future. We have a couple milestone anniversaries coming up here in Norwich and across the nation. This August is the bicentennial of Lafayette, the Marquis de Lafayette's visit to Norwich in 1824. So gearing up to do some sort of celebration for that here in August. And then in 2025 marks the 350th anniversary of the Leffingwell House Museum's construction. And then in 2026 is the 250th anniversary of the start of the American Revolution, signing of the Declaration of Independence. So we have a small committee working right now on some of those big plans to celebrate these big events coming up. So that's my 30-second overview. Happy to answer any specific questions, but that's what's going on at the moment.
Regan, how does the last Green Valley deal with the business parking lot?
That's a great question. I don't know. I sit on their board, but that has not been brought up before. So that's certainly a question I can ask.
Yeah, I'm just primarily talking about the luminary aspects of it as the last Green Valley.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can certainly ask. I don't think it's been brought to their attention yet. So
Thank you, Regan.
you're welcome.
Yeah, I mean, it's okay. Dean, do you mind if I facilitate a little bit this meeting?
No, you
Okay,
can.
thank you. Since we're familiar with the way that's run in the past, if that's
Yep.
okay.
No, that's
And
fine.
there's no applications. Tucker, do you want to talk about the Harbor Commission?
Sure.
Okay.
I'm involved in the Harbor Commission, Norwich Harbor Commission, and we have recently won a grant through the Port Authority and through their extremity of the SHIP grant, which is a small harbor improvement program for $49,000, and that was to the docks in front of Howard Brown Park. And the thing that they had to be done because they were 29 years old. The thing that is unique is that they have a ramp that is wheelchair accessible, that brings people in from other destinations to our community. As well as that, and by the way, and we are going to have a ribbon cutting, I think, on the will be determined exactly tomorrow from NCDC. But we'll have a ribbon cutting, and all the people will be there hopefully. And it's right now the fishermen and the fishing people are very excited about it because it's that down all summer. And the other grant that we just received was a $40,000 grant for the Heritage Walk, which is toward the end of the Heritage Walk on the east side of the West Branch. Yeah, east side of the east branch of the Atlantic River. There's a little bump out there, and we've asked and secured a grant, and we will continue pursuing the grant in so much as construction funds. But we have received $40,000 grant to fix that, design it, and work with it as to improve it so that, again, people I've noticed over the years come and fish there, they contemplate there, they read a book there. It's just probably as long as that table that sits out in the river, and people enjoy it. And that's what we're doing in the Harbor Commission.
The ribbon cutting is Wednesday, April 24th at 9 a.m. I got the notification today.
Okay, good.
From NCDC.
NCDC, I got it.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
I hope that's the date.
Yes, it is. I have it in the calendar. I sent it out to everybody.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. So Pat, do you want to talk a little Public Works?
Sure, I didn't refresh like Reagan, I didn't refresh myself with what our goals were, but I know there was something with complete streets. So we completed that bump out on the lower Broadway there near Billy Wilson's to, promote congregating areas out in the public rights of way. We are been working on, sprucing up the parks, we paved the parking lot up at the tennis courts, and we're gonna be, and we improved the drainage up there too. And which will have a positive effect on that whole down by Bacchus Hospital and Bliss Place and all that whole area, Sachem Plains Terrace. And other part, we've just been working on, providing some bathrooms. We're trying to put a bathroom in up at that park, by the tennis courts, which will kind of serve that whole recreation complex area. And also, we've been working on the Uncasleep Heritage Park. That's probably the biggest one that's going on right now. And that should be done in the late summer, early fall. And I don't know, that's about all I can think of at the moment. But as we go through some of the goals, maybe I'll think of other things.
So tonight we didn't expect everybody to be prepared at all tonight. This is more of like introductions. We were hoping the group would be larger tonight. And Ella, by the way, is here as well. I don't know if you noticed that, CCP member.
Yep.
Ella, shut up. Hi, Ella. But we wanted to do a first introduction, talk about, the next steps, and which will be really talking about the short-term goals and ongoing goals that we're doing, because this is the time frame for that. Was it 1 to 3 years?
Yep.
Yeah, so it was a 3-year time frame. So we're just at the beginning, so this is the perfect time to really stay focused on those. Chris LaRose is here from MPU, and I know you're going through your list, but you don't have to do that right now if you don't want to. Just kind of give us an update of the things you're working on. Obviously, the big project over on Hollyhock.
Yeah, so if anybody hasn't driven down on Hollyhock Island and looked down up to the north, the whole site's been grubbed. There are cranes everywhere, and we've started the $200 million upgrade. We were able to get 36% grant, which was significantly more than we were expecting going into this project. So thanks to Senator Austin and the Norwich delegation, they did a great job of getting us extra money for this. And we're still working with them to see if there's additional opportunities to reduce that cost going forward. And they've been very receptive to possibly helping out a little more. So that's, to me, the biggest project going on for the next 3 to 4 years. And that's been pretty exciting. The other thing that and that was, I think, in our plan, I think it was 169 million. So it, unfortunately, with the additional inflation, things cost more now. The other thing that we're very excited that happened in the last year is we've received $10 million in grants to upgrade and replace cast iron gas mains in the city. And we haven't been able to get authorization to start spending it yet, but we expect that to happen late 24, early 25. And we've been working with them for almost a year now. We got that check last June. There's opportunity for a second round of funding, and we are very optimistic we'll get additional monies. It'd be nice to spend money before we get the second round, but that's also going on there. And just continuing to spend capital money to improve our system. And we're looking at, in our budget this year, at starting a 34.5 line to connect our 3 substations. And that will provide us the ability to add a lot of green generation, solar, other battery storage anywhere in our system versus only where there's a new load. We've been supporting Business Park North, Ockham Industrial Center, and are optimistic that we'll start putting infrastructure to serve that property in the beginning of 25, and at the start of when they start building that arterial road into the park. We're working closely with Preston Riverwalk, and we can serve water, gas, and sewer to the state hospital property, we can compete for the electric load. And that site's been served by Norwich. It's been served by their own generation and by Eversource. Right now, we're the only utility serving any power to that site down at their pump station. And we're hoping to get that load. The expectation is that the cleanup has been completed, being reviewed by DEEP. Expect that transfer of land to happen in late 24. And then that starts the clock for the Mohegan Sun to fully develop, start construction within 3 years, fully develop within 5. It's in Preston, but it's 10% of any load other than sewer that we serve goes to the city of Norwich. So it's a great benefit of bringing additional revenue to the city if we do get that load there. So a lot of the.
And Chris, just to clarify, nobody else can serve with the other 3 utilities?
No.
MDU is the sole.
Well, we could say we have a right of first refusal,
Gotcha.
but there's no reason that we would refuse that load. And, you know, when you look at their master plan, it's hotels, it's glamping, it's a water park, it's big utility load stuff.
Yeah.
That's great.
And you have capacity at this point in time?
What's that?
You have capacity at this point in time?
Absolutely. And if they are an enormous water user, we have the ability with a regional interconnect to allow Groton to serve as well as us. So if they ask for 3 or 4 million gallons of water, you know, the whole city uses 5. But, you know, if they use a really large amount, we would partner with the city of Groton and be able to provide it that way.
And there was also the lead water service
Oh,
program, right?
well, that's either a disaster or a success, depending on how you look at it. Back in the 80s, the state provided money for Norwich Public Utilities to replace all of the lead lines that we knew of. It didn't allow anything for the customer-owned pipes. So now they're providing money to take care of the customer-owned pipes. But because utilities never owned it, our record keeping wasn't great. There are 5,000 services in the city of Norwich that could be lead, and we did our first assessment of 300. And they asked us to do a quick shot, find 300 services and start construction. We only found 6 of the suspected 300. Great that there's less lead pipes in the city, but we can't start a construction project. So I'll be in front of the city council next month looking to shift money from construction to assessment. And we're going to do a lot more assessment to try to find these lead services. But if, you know, the state is, you know, since the issues in Flint, Michigan, the state is providing a lot of money and they're providing a lot of money to do this work. And so they have no problem shifting it from construction to assessment to make sure we don't have it in our system. So I've just got to go through and revamp what our assumptions were with my board and then the city council next month.
What is the value of that?
The first phase is going to be to do roughly 300 services and all the steps was roughly $5 million. And we're getting north of 80% grant. Normally, for, you know, we were getting between 6 and 30% for a water project. 80% is unheard of.
You shift that money to assessment and be able to assess everything you think or a portion of them or?
We should be able to get the assessment done. We have to have a statistical, not 100% assessment, but a statistical assessment completed by the fall, whether we shifted that money or not. But we're going to be doing a lot more digging and a lot more vacuum excavating to find what these services are.
Is there a way to test, and this is a question of not a knowledgeable person, but if people wanted to have their water tested, can you tell that they have lead pipes based on their water quality?
So
Like, is there a way that people could ask that and have it tested that way?
unfortunately, no. And the reason is we put corrosion inhibitors in our water. And even if we got replaced all lead pipe outside of the house, there's no money. Well, I guess there's CDBG and other money, but there's no real funding through utilities to replace any lead piping in the house.
Okay, so
or
it could be
some
that way.
solder joints.
I got it.
But because we put the corrosion inhibitors in, we are required to test for lead and copper in houses.
Yes.
And when it's properly treated, you don't get lead poisoning from the pipes.
Okay.
Flint, Michigan did 2 things. They switched to a corrosive water system and they stopped treating to save money. It was a bankrupt city, and unfortunately, you know, they got caught taking the shortcut.
So some of the things the planning department's working on, again, we're gonna kind of go through this and we don't have to do it all tonight. This is the first shot, you know, here, when it was the ongoing project, obviously, but some of the things we've been working on, which kind of piggyback some of the things that you're doing is, we're applying for grants, quite often for things that we see or things in the plan. So, we worked with the owner of the property of the Norwich State Hospital in Norwich, to try to get planning assessment money for them to do assessment for brownfields there, but to study what's kind of going on and to do some planning of what potential uses could go there.
It was kind of 50-50 or 60-40 of planning, master planning study and a brownfield.
That was kind, but we did, fortunately, we did not get it, but we were, and it was 250,000 was the cap on that. But we were encouraged by the legislature and the people who are involved in the receiving the grants to resubmit, because there were so many applications, but that one didn't completely bubble to the top, but they saw the worthiness of it. Especially what's happening with Preston Riverwalk. We don't want to just ignore what's happening here. But that's a really tough one because it's not municipally owned. And there's always developers that are trying to work with the owner and come up with ideas. And we need to make sure we're steering that boat a little bit to go in the right direction. Otherwise, you know, the city could get something less than what it could be.
We don't want to be the parking lot.
Yeah.
So zoning of that.
We do, but we need to, and that's where I was gonna lead to next. One of the things in the POCD is we really need to change our zoning regulations to affect what happened here. And that will be looking at the zoning there and looking at the riverfront zoning and looking at so many different things. So we're lucky enough, I guess I would say, that we have some consultant money left in this year's current budget. So we'll be going out for consultant services hopefully in the next month or so. Before June 30th to get a locked-in consultant on board. We don't have to work on it this year, but we want to use some of this year's funds so that we can assist Dan and I to do the zoning regulations. It's not something you want to do completely in-house, but we can do the mapping with the help from MPU internally, and we can do the outreach. So there's certain tasks that we feel comfortable doing, but it's the formatting, just like when we did the POCD, it's really taking it all and putting it into a document. So that's really important to the POCD is really to change our zoning to affect what we really want to happen here. So Norwich State Hospital is one of them, the riverfront, a lot of it. We're also busy thinking about the K Park property and going for grants for that. We did receive a very small grant for $62,000 to upgrade the remedial action plan and the soils data for that site. So we're able to do that with that small amount of money, but we've asked for a $4 million grant to start some of the demolition and remediation there. But to redevelop that into a park, which is in the plan to redevelop, is about a $20 million project. The $4 million is sort of this first stage one, but we feel if we're successful with that there's more opportunities for the rest of the money. So we got that small grant and we're hoping to get the bigger grant and then continue on that. There is a lot of value to the state of for so many reasons, for environmental reasons, clean up for brownfields, water quality, so many different things, and quality of life, environmental justice to really clean up that site. So that's really been on top of something that Dan and I are really working hard on. Dan, you want to talk about the transportation initiatives that we've been working on too?
Yep, we are involved. I wrote a grant for the downtown mobility study a couple of years ago, and we got the funding secured, and it's happening now. We should have some results from that at some point this summer. We're going to do a tactical urbanism demonstration in front of Otis Library and Cliff Street. We're going to kind of paint some bump outs like we did on Central Avenue in Greenville.
To shorten the distance that people
for the crossing.
Yeah.
So certain people wanted to do it next week, but with all the rain, I'm kind of pushing for June, just temperature wise, because that's when we did Central Avenue for that paint to dry overnight. So you'll see that, and then hoping to get some good results. There's some people in the room that are on the steering committee for that. the first meeting we had a few months back, we didn't really see what had in mind when we initiated the study. So we kind of gave the consultant some homework to go back and look at some other options. And the proposed roundabouts in that plan will not close any businesses or cause any disruption, unlike some other potential roundabouts. And one of the main goals in here is to complete a complete streets plan by 2025. That's kind of up in the air if we're going to start this zoning code overhaul, which is going to take a lot of effort. It's really too big of a job for a two-person office, but we'll do it. Pat's internet's been unstable. So working with Pat and Brian on that type of thing. I think that's kind of it. The
Main
TAP
Street
project,
rollout.
we got TAP grants a few years back. Those will be, I think the goal is to start those once the Sherman Street Bridge is reopened. So there'll be some construction on the London Turnpike, basically from the Norwich Town Green to the Montville Town line in one form or another. There's two separate grants for two legs of that. And we're starting to get involved with the school redevelopment project through wetlands mainly at this point. There's a lot of things going through this today about the schools planning.
Yeah, and they'll be coming to CCP with their
Site
proposed site plans too. So the school stuff is starting, but they're starting with the initiative too. So, and then we'll see what happens from there. It's moving along. And there's always discussions about, like, in the background still about the police department and all things
Right.
like that, that are still, you know, was thrown out a little while ago, you know, about a location for them. But so that's not really off the burner because it's in the plan. So that's still kind of, you know, being discussed.
Then another Chris related thing, we met with, there's two new environmental related planners at the COG. And they had a lot of questions about EV charging and public spaces and locations and all that. So we said we could facilitate them meeting with you and Jeff to kind of, we don't know, I just defer to you on that. We can help with location choice if the infrastructure supports it, but
yeah.
And I know
It's really the grants have not come forward on any of that, and that's one of the things where nationwide, the electric charging was supposed to be like number one,
Yeah.
and there's only been a handful throughout the whole nation that have been funded.
And then affordable housing, obviously we had, you know, we had to adopt an affordable housing plan. We were able to do that a couple summers ago now, I think it was a 5-year plan. And we got ours in time. Most communities, I would say over half did not get theirs in time and done in time, but we did. We're always on top of that kind of stuff, but you know, working with developers, there's nothing in our plan, in our zoning regulations now that specifically talks to creating affordable housing. So when we do our public scoping meetings about the zoning regulations, there'll be some discussion about should there be a percentage required, or you know, what would be the trigger, because you know, as you know, the city, the threshold is 10% in the state, and we are like 19 something. And so we've already, you know, have more than most, but that doesn't mean that what we have for affordable housing is necessarily the most quality affordable housing or the best housing stock out there. So do we want to, in our regulations, when we're creating new housing, be able to get, you know, a little bit of upgrade for people, you know, in the regs. So there's going to be a lot of discussion and about all the different things that happen in zoning regulations. Short-term rental discussions is always still out there. 1 second, Tucker, I'm just finishing my thoughts. Short-term rentals is always a discussion, and so is like boarding houses, but what they are more of like communal living than boarding houses. People want to have those kind of options of how they can share a house together, multiple people, how that can happen. And a lot of it's code related. So some building codes need to change or fire codes to make these things happen. But all these things are going to be on the table, which kind of are all filtered throughout our plan. And you have a question?
I have a quick question. There's a philosophy of our community that they have new units. Let's take Kevy's units, or let's take Panema Mill units. And those are really pretty sharp units for our community. And in theory, the people who live and own 2 or 3 families, they would upgrade their properties to conform with the new properties on the market. Is that taking hold?
I don't know. I mean, I would say, I'm not getting a lot of feedback from the building official that that's what's happening. It's like, oh, they need to compete with Panema, or they need to compete with Gebby's. I don't really see that. I see that people that can't.
This is normal economic competition without saying you have to do this.
Yeah, but I don't think it's happening as much as you'd hope that it would. I think that the prices are just going up. I think that there's an issue with, what is available and the cost of it for people. And, and taxes are going, all that stuff. So the landlords are passing that along. And, yeah, I mean, we're just trying to really push on our community development department. They have monies. They did some speaking to the senior center, and they went on the radio and spoke with, hey, there's monies out here for these existing properties that you can upgrade your roof, you can do your heating system, you can do anything that's code related, even bathrooms or handicap bathrooms, things like that. So we're trying to get that out because it's almost free money, to be honest with you. I mean, because they can pay over many, many years when they, it's
20 or 30 years.
Yeah,
that's
more,
0%.
it's a 0% for that. So it's like, and I think even if they pass away, isn't there like it gets paid out of the sale or
Sell
something?
the house,
Yeah, so it's not like somebody has to pay all those payments right now if they don't have the money. So we're trying to get people to upgrade
Yeah, there was a
in creative ways.
There was a reach out to our school systems. And that was one of the vehicles that we could reach out to people
Mhm,
to inform them what if that there was more money out there.
mhm,
And when I served on that committee, that was.
mhm. I think that they have really good staff there now. They have some new staff that's doing different outreach, so that's helpful too. But either way, I mean, it's hard to incentivize existing property owners to fix their houses because, like you said, that you think that they want to compete with those others for the rent, but I think it's different people
I
coming
think
in.
there's still a strong need for quality, affordable housing that is, all those new units are expensive. They're
Yeah.
really market rate. There's some that are set aside that are somewhat affordable, but even those aren't necessarily affordable for the average person. So there's a need. I know there's a bill before the state now that would tie money to towns would get money if they established a community development corporation that rehab housing specifically, which I think is a huge need in Norwich.
Like Habitat by Humanity.
No.
Not Habitat. But it would be like an NCDC, but it just did housing.
Kind of like a vanilla box.
Yeah,
And
they
residential.
might buy all of Union Street and this nonprofit corporation owns it, rehabs it, and then either rents it or turns around and sells it, type of thing.
That's what they're kind of doing. That is
Yeah.
so, the state's encouraging that to, it look large,
Yeah, code correction
Yeah.
and updating things.
So we've been trying to keep these meetings for 1 hour, just so everyone knows that. So what we're gonna try to do is why don't we just start with this first page or two, and because we don't expect to do all of this, tonight, but if there's something that jumps out with you that you want to talk about, NCDC is not here represented tonight, and they're tied in a lot, but NPU is as well. So, do you want to, Chris, chime in on a few of these? Like the first one has, how's that going with our team meetings? We're continuing doing that.
We're continuing to do that, and it brings a lot of value for new developers to have one-stop shopping and as well as the meetings that happen on site when there needs to be an upgrade to a building. And I think those are successful and continue to move forward.
And I think, like I said, the Norwich Chamber of Commerce isn't here either, Greater Norwich Area Chamber of Commerce, but they are really spotlighting those neighborhood retail and doing marketing and they've been leading the effort with NCDC as far as doing ribbon cuttings and groundbreakings and lots of small business openings lately. So if you're not signed up on the Chamber's website, if you go there, I think you can sign up for their newsletter, and it comes out, I think, once a week. Angela sends it out. Is it once a week that Angela sends it out with what's going on that week? So there's a lot. So like, you get one email at the beginning of the week and it tells you so much that's going on and all the things. So it's worth your while. See here.
I just want to say, on the parklets, I don't
Yep.
see Public Works listed under either one of the parties, but I would say we do 75% of the work on those, including citing them.
Yes, so that you're probably at least the support entity on that, so I would put
Well,
public,
I'm saying we probably do 75% of it, but yeah, we should, whatever. We've done a lot of them.
yes.
We're ready to put them back up again this year now.
So just so you can touch on that, Kevin's not here. You know, there are some that were up last year, or has he told you of any new ones that are going up this year at different locations that we didn't have last year?
There's been some talk, but nothing specific, no.
All right, so is everyone familiar with the Parklet program? Okay, so the Parklet program is if you drove around last year, actually kind of started during COVID.
On Franklin Street in front of,
Billy Wilson's one of the.
and Billy Wilson's,
Like
yeah.
the start of the concept, right?
Yeah.
So it's,
Fulfills
they
a
were like
parking
the
space.
structures that were out taking a parking space, those are called the parklet. So it's a place people can see, sit outside and be safe and kind of have like a deck when places that don't have decks or outdoor areas. That's really where they're really good. So inner cities have been really adopting this parklet idea because you don't have that grassy area or the deck off of your restaurant. So it's taking up usually immediately in front of the business, a space that you can utilize for, it's almost like an expansion of the business out of that space. So like the Cream Coffee Shop, Epicure had one there. Billy Franklin, Billy Wilson's is where we tried it out. And once it was so successful and they really liked it is why we installed that bump out, because we envisioned that the building next door, 59 Broadway,
Will be occupied. And
will be occupied eventually, and that would be a great area for a restaurant or something there. So, and Billy Wilson's is using it too. So, it's harder to do the parklets on the streets that are state roads because the traffic speeds are faster. But we've had a couple requests on those, but Congio's had one last year. Couple on Franklin that didn't do quite as well, a little bit further down the road. Because we do have agreements. If you're going to get a parklet, you need to landscape it. You need to put some flowers. You need to put the tables. You need to actually
the
enhance it.
furniture,
Yeah, you have to enhance it. So we're not going to invest in your business and give you a free enhancement if you're not going to be taking care of it or making it attractive for people to come. So, so we'll see where they end up this year.
yeah, I
So,
believe. the
So that
people
was
in-
presented at the last NCDC meeting. I
Okay.
don't have details in my head, so.
okay,
But there, you know, they did talk about some of the ones down on Franklin Street that they preferred, you know, more, it's more of a drive-through kind of thing. So the people weren't sitting there and eating and they lost the place to.
yeah, they left their
So-
parking space because of it. So that's what it is. You are gonna lose a space, but that's if you have customers that are drinking coffee or you come, like the space in front of Epicure was great because people coming from NCDC or Epicure or in the coffee shop and being able to use that space out there. So, but we want to encourage that program to use and grow it if we find that this is successful, and that was in the plan. So, but thank you, Pat. And Public Works has really been the lead because they put them out and take them back, put them out and retrieve them before the.
Well, we actually cite them too. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, it's not just, okay, throw one here, you know.
No, we respect all the hard work that goes into that. So then you have reevaluating zoning code within neighborhood quarters. That's
medium.
That's medium,
Yeah.
but we are kind of starting to work
Yeah.
on that with the zoning
Yeah.
regulations. So
And I apologize, the green printed out extremely dark
Yeah.
compared to on the screen.
the complete street plan, the plan Dan talked about is a short-term goal, but we're gonna have to wait till we're working on the zoning regulations for that. Public spaces within the nodes and corridors, maintain, enhance them. We're kind of doing that. It's ongoing, and Pat talked about what they're doing with parks. Maintaining and upgrading electric, water, and sewer in target quarters here. It's ongoing.
Yeah, and we're seeing, you know, it's not just a sewer plant. We're getting money to reline pipes in Greenville. We have 3 water tank projects going on. Painting the Yannick tank and putting mixing in Business Park, Rocha Brown, and Yannick tank. So that will reduce disinfection byproducts in those tanks for better water quality. So there's unprecedented amount of money coming in from grants from the federal programs.
Can you do your own grant writing in-house?
Yes. We have farmed out a little bit of help, of course, for the electric ones because they're extremely competitive, but we also have not been successful in those because they're so competitive.
So on this other one for resolving waste management issues in commercial activity zones to reduce visual clutter, this is actually very pertinent right now, and the commission knows that as well. We've had a couple developments that are happening downtown, 7791, which is 42 units of housing, and it's the Water Street, Main Street property, the large one. And so they are trying to get COs for their units now, or it's starting that process. And there's been a change of what they want to do for their trash removal there. And so there's a give and a take and a lot of pushback that we're getting, and we're involving the waste companies. And Pat might want to chime in on this. We've been trying to involve the waste companies in this because we don't want it to fall onto everybody getting trash bins everywhere. Because if you drive around, the visual clutter of the trash bins is very a detraction for our beautiful city. So, you know, if you think about 42 units, that's 84 bins, because you're talking about their recycling bin as well. So, you know, this was proved with a trash compactor and a whole procedure, and it just didn't happen. And so after that, we just recently had a commission application for, I think it was 6 units, wasn't that just 6? But that became a topic of discussion of where are you going to put the waste cans, where, you know, maybe that's okay to have 6 cans and 6, but they're not going to be in your doorway, you know, I mean, and this is what's happening now. So Pat, do you want to talk a little bit about that as well, since you've been involved with waste management?
Well, I think the goal is not just specific new developments, but it's to reduce it in the whole downtown area and try to manage it better. And now that we have another person in the office, you know, that can help with that, I think we have made a lot of improvements on, but there is limited space in a lot of these areas. They can't put a dumpster. So, you know, it's something that is a problem, but I think we've made some improvement on it, but there's still more to be done.
So one of the things we need to make inroads on, though, is that we've been finding, and we're going to ask our assistant zoning officer, she's assistant blight and zoning, to work on a project. There's a lot of site plans for commercial development that they were supposed to put a dumpster in, or a dumpster in a dumpster. They have the fenced areas, and they're like now been getting rid of the dumpster, and they're using trash cans instead. So, and those things, once you do that, it's easy not to bring them back and put them behind the fence if they were taking care of it and we didn't know. But now we're noticing they're not having the dumpsters and garbage issues. So we're going to start looking at some of those approved site plans that had dumpsters and force them to get them back on their sites, because that's not what was approved by the commission. Because we do always do comprehensive reviews when we bring it to the commission and say, how are you handling your trash? You know, what are you doing with that? When are you getting your deliveries? We ask these questions, and for them to change it during the process when they're operating and say, no, we don't want to do this, it's too expensive or whatever, it's just not, it's not a sufficient answer, because that's not what was brought before the commission. So
I have been serving the parking commission, so, and last quarter brought up the idea of the garage that we have on Main Street. I don't believe there's a working elevator there. And it's in dire need of a placement of the whole parking facility. Even though it's down the road at ITC, there's no one parking there, but that particular facility, there'll be many apartments right across the street that will be very confused about parking, and that may be the solution to some of the waste products that people have. I don't see that in any of these.
Pat, do you want to talk to a little bit about that? Because he's talking about the Main Street garage. Tucker, I don't know if you heard what he said.
He wasn't very close to the microphone. I couldn't hear everything what he was saying.
What my thoughts are, we have a Main Street garage, and it's in very bad repair. With the elevator and just the vintage of it, and with all the new apartments right across the street from there, and the ones that are allocated out through the parking commission, it may be a time to start thinking about the overall development of that, a new parking place there, even what it is.
So we're getting an assessment done of it, so we'll see what that does, but the elevator should be repaired. It's in the process of being repaired.
is non-compliant with any ADA things that I'm familiar with.
Well, unless you, but it's, yeah, anyway.
Yeah, I appreciate the problem that we're all having with that.
Deanna.
Yep.
Excuse me, what about something like a central dumpster for maybe 20 units of housing or something like that? They have that at the Sheridan Apartments. You know, they have one bin for, I don't know how many units they allocate. My mother lives there, so, you know, I'm always bringing her bags of garbage to the central dumpster.
Mhm.
You know, maybe something like that.
Well, it works on a larger like Westledge. Westledge has central, central
Yeah.
dumpsters and it works there. The problem is more in the dense areas like downtown where
Yeah,
people, they have right here, they have the apartments
Like-
here. They're on a hillside behind them. There's no place to really put stuff. And then when people, they just don't bring their garbage cans in or they just barely bring it. It's not,
Like Lower Broadway,
what?
like Lower Broadway, there's just
Yeah.
no space.
Yeah, there's no central vacant area or spot that can be dedicated to it.
I mean, there's
certain
always room
areas,
for a
in
creative
certain areas.
solution, and it
Yeah.
just takes
Yeah.
discussion and
Mhm.
agreements and.
And everybody has to buy into that. They're gonna pay whoever's property is
Yeah.
on there to have it. And that's difficult. People wanna, it's a
It's
particular,
like parking, people are lazy, they just
Well-
want a
Yeah.
garbage can, and they
Yeah,
don't wanna
sure.
bring it in.
so there's a particular property, I won't speak about it exactly, but it's a particular owner who has a multifamily house that they want the lot that the city owns next to it for their trash. They said they need their trash cans on there. They maybe have create a couple parking spaces, but it's really for the dumpsters. But they're not current on paying their taxes to the city. So why should the city, yes, I would love for them to do that because it's a great thing. But the balance in the tax offices, we're gonna give them another piece of property, city property, they're not gonna pay taxes on. So it's like, that's the argument, is like, yeah, we could solve a problem in some ways, but we're creating another problem if they're not gonna pay taxes on another municipal property that we're gonna hand over to them. So I don't know. It's very frustrating.
And then along those lines, it was interesting at our last meeting, we had the big discussion. So I called Waste Management, Willimantic Waste, and asked the manager up there if he had any alternatives for us, for cities, not a lot of room available. And he said the only thing he could suggest at this time, they're looking into it, by the way, but the only thing he can suggest at this time is they have a smaller size dumpster. And it might, I don't know how small, I haven't seen it, but it might fit our needs. Kat, can you hear that?
Yeah, I heard that, but see, not everybody's eligible for city trash collection. Most commercial properties are responsible for doing it on their own.
Well, right. But what he told me at Willimantic Waste was certain people, I don't know who gets them, but certain people get this slightly smaller dumpster, green and a blue.
Oh, the cans,
Oh,
they do have a
yeah.
small cans, yeah.
Not dumpster, but a can.
If you're an older resident, you can get a smaller can that's easier to maneuver. That's not just
Yeah.
hard.
It's a 65 gallon versus a 90 gallon.
Yeah,
They're just as tall. They're just a slightly smaller diameter, essentially.
okay, you've seen that? Okay,
Oh yeah, very familiar with them.
So we're keeping, go to that topic, we're keeping Public Works very much in the loop on how we're gonna deal with trash issues in the city. Because it goes along with the whole look of light. People are, how are they disposing of their trash? And if they are, that's great, but then they're leaving their cans out there, and that's the thing.
Yeah.
Kevin did talk at one point about looking into it. I don't know how feasible in reality this is, but like in New York City, a lot of them are underground, like the trash cans are in the ground. Did they talk about that, Pat, at one point?
Well, that just gets extremely expensive, but yeah.
But I mean, in
I
a
guess-
perfect situation of a big new development going in, if they could do something like that,
Oh, on a new development, yeah, you could have an elevator and bring them down below, and that's essentially what they were supposed to be doing with that one on Main Street, I thought.
Yes. Yes, but they were also planning to do that on land that the city owns, that was gonna be on that staircase.
Well, I thought it was supposed to be interior. It was going to be in a compactor. I thought that in the basement of the building is what I was told, but
Yeah, that's
because they don't own that you know.
But then but they would be from the compactor, they would have something on the outside of that building, right? Wasn't there?
They need a lift to get it down.
Oh, yeah, the lift would be on the outside, Pat, right there, and that's how they would get it out on that side over the city property.
Would that, popping in here, would that, deal with the new opening of the Reed Hughes? A compaction system in the ground?
I mean, not to speak for them, but I don't know how they would financially afford that.
Yeah.
It seems to barely make ends meet.
Yeah, and it's.
Groundbreaking ceremony on 24th.
The 17 unit, that's 17 units compared to 42. And the land, like right directly, if one of the options is within their building that they have a compaction room and a can room for their cans, and they move them out, but the issue is, once they use the compactors, the weight gets so heavy that it's hard to move it out, so they
need a toter machine to drive it out, because it could be 1,500 pounds.
That's the issue.
Well, the real issue, we want businesses in the downtown, but we need the people in the upper floors to nourish the businesses that are downtown, the sandwich shops, coffee shops. And so this is one of those infrastructure problems that we have to deal with.
No, I get it. So we'll just do it's pretty, 7 minutes.
We get through live goal 2. Let's do it. Right
Okay.
here. It's all ongoing.
Okay, here we go. So ongoing, adaptive reuse of historic mills as multifamily housing. We know that FEMA was approved for the South Mill. A couple of mills that are for multifamily that are still left out there, and the big Chestnut Street Mill. But other than that, Cape Part is going to be coming down. There's not really that many mill buildings. The other mill building, specifically mill, would be the one that's over on Clinton by Public Works. But that's in the flood hazard area and would not be suitable for money to be doing housing there. And they were flooded. I think they even had mattresses or furniture got flooded last time at something. So, but as far as continuing to promote that, it would really be at this point, I think, if not the South Mill of Panema, it's really Chestnut Street Mill at some point. So it's an ongoing project, and that's difficult because, working with private property owners is always a little hard.
The next one we just talked about extensively, and
Yep.
then we'll work along target corridors that are transit accessible. That's an ongoing goal there. Right?
So, and then I'm prioritizing single family low density residential patterns in rural planning districts. That for us in Norwich, that's really important because we do have those larger lots and some countryside and things. But from a national standpoint, that's one of those things that we're kind of on the flip side of it. A lot of communities in the country are really trying to deprioritize single family housing and large lot zoning and things. So our community has decided, again, we went out to the public, what do we want? So we want to protect some of that in our community. But just so you know, nationwide, that's really a trend is not that. As a matter of fact, a lot of communities are changing the zoning regulations to prohibit single family zoning.
Not large lots, smaller lots.
Well, it's prioritizing single family, low density. When you do low density, that means they're still fairly good sized lots because that's low density.
I think the intent of this is to develop and redevelop where we already have infrastructure and utilities, and not do greenfields.
Okay.
Big suburban subdivision development, which we don't really have in Norwich anyway. We don't get 200 lots.
No, but it is still keeping some traditional housing in the city,
Preserving farms, the few farms we have left.
Exactly. So then the next page is only a few other for ongoing. Oh, there's a lot of
green space.
Okay, so it's 6:56. Do we want to next month or the next meeting was every other month, right? What's our calendar?
Quarterly, I believe.
Or quarterly. Would you want to take a look at this between now and then we could start at this page in C5.
What page?
C5 in June. That sounds good.
Yeah, can you give me this in Excel?
Doesn't exist.
Really, it looks just like Excel.
Yeah, it's
This
I
is when
may
we
end
use.
up putting it into Excel, but it's gonna take me a minute.
So what ends up happening is when we work with consultants, they always use their fancy dancy programs that are lovely to look at, but they're very hard to translate to something else. And that's
Not
what,
to cut and paste it all.
yeah.
Do it, but it might be easier.
But that's one of the issues we have, like with the zoning regulations, when we change them, it's a very fancy format. It's beautiful. It's so impractical to use. It's a nightmare to change anything in that zoning reg. So
The
sometimes,
ripple effect of changes is the cause of
yes,
a lot of stress.
yeah. So,
We still use Florida zoning,
we use what?
Florida zoning.
Do we use Florida zoning?
Where's that zoning?
Florida zoning?
Where's that? Not, where's the format for our zoning?
When you say the format, explain exactly
Yeah.
what you mean.
I'm not sure what I mean.
Okay. So we have traditional zoning,
Okay.
which is, based on, it's not,
Form-based.
form-based,
zoning,
which is, yeah, it's
separation of
traditional,
uses.
Euclidean zoning or
Yeah.
Euclidean zoning, which is basically you have zones, and inside those zones, you have uses that are allowed. Anything that's not allowed is disallowed by default. It's permissive zoning. Then there's different types of zoning. And again, this could come up during our discussions when we're working on zoning regulations. There's form-based zoning, and form-based zoning is, instead of looking at it that way, what you look at is you're very permissive in all your zones, but it's based on how it looks. So maybe in your residential zones, back in the olden days, when you'd have your little store and your car dealership, or all those things are in your neighborhood. But now it's like, yeah, maybe we want to go back to that, but it's how it looks. So
Yeah,
it's,
you
so
allow
you,
for it as it was harmonious and looked nice together, so there's a lot of visual
The-
requirements.
yes, so-
signage,
The
lighting.
McDonald's in Freeport, Maine was putting a house.
Yes,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
yes, so it's almost like a village district in the sense of that, like you have guidelines that you have to follow. But it takes away it makes the use is very permissive. Do you care if there's a manufacturer next to you that looks like a dollhouse that's next to your home? You know what I mean? Yeah, you may still, because it's gonna be loud, but the whole thing is how it looks on the outside. So like Hartford really, really went to a form-based zoning to allow in the city so many things to be intermixed with each other, but it's supposedly going to look better. But you have to have strong teeth in your regulations of how things look, and everybody's better be in agreement that you're not gonna get wishy-washy on that. This is how it's gonna look if it's in Taffville, or this is how it's gonna look in these neighborhoods. And so unless you have really strong feelings about how you want things to look, it's a really hard way to go. And Hartford's zoning regulations were like $250,000 to create their zoning regulations, because they spent all this time on that. So,
we will not be doing that.
yeah,
Well,
if we did it, it might be
Unless
in
you-
one
Yeah,
area.
You can, lobby.
If you lobbied
City
one area
council
and
or-
said, well, for an example, like if you really hate the way Route 82, let's just use Route 82 as an example, and said, it's looking like Berlin Turnpike, there's just all the signs, and what are, we really want to change how that looks. Well, a lot of it's already built, so it's gonna be hard to change it. But if just say you decided to change it, when anything comes down there, we want it to look from here to there, it's going to look like this. But we don't care what goes there, it can be any type of business, as long as it looks like this. We could do that, but everybody needs to be agreement on it, and there's no flexibility, it's like, that's what it is. But traditionally, we are what's called Euclidean zoning, which is the typical zoning, which is, and that's, most communities do that because it's the easiest way to do zoning, because you're like, is it allowed in the zone? What's the process? How do you approve it? And that's really it. Is it allowed, and how do we get you to get there? And what are your X, Y, and Z things you need to do to show and to get there? So, and we'll probably lean more towards that, but we could be unique, just like we did with the village district. and
Yeah,
have
we
that.
have ideas for certain areas.
Yep.
And corridors.
Yeah.
That you'll see some changes there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Some of the gateway areas, might be important to really highlight, and protect what happens there. So it's your meeting. So what was also on the agenda after
Yeah,
this?
that's
Dan?
left on the agenda.
Yeah.
So, moving forward.
Public comment. Did you have any public comment today or prior?
Nope, usually it's that the public is on the meeting, but we don't have
But
anyone
I didn't know
here.
if anybody,
No comments here. And again, with just going back to moving forward, POZ implementation, what we're gonna do is start to focus on the short term and ongoing.
Yeah.
And then when we get through this, which will be a couple of meetings, we'll continue always to see what are each of these groups doing on their short term and long term. And short term and ongoing. And in the time frame, as we get closer to the 3 years, we'll start working on the medium. So we really want to focus these first 3 years on the short term and the ongoing. I think if we start talking like it's just going to get mixed in the minutia. So, and we have 10 years to do this, and we want to continue to update, what we're doing, the positive things. So zoning regulations will check off a lot of boxes, things that you're doing.
That being said, if we get some funding opportunity out of the blue, that's a long-term thing, obviously we'd jump on that.
Yes,
oh, certainly.
yeah. And
There's no miscellaneous.
miscellaneous, we're just gonna continue right now this year, we're quarterly,
Yeah. I
and
think the next meeting is June,
in June and then.
right?
Yeah.
Let
So
me ask a question. How do you think it's going so far? Stay the course, or do you think changes need to be made already, or the way this process is
no,
going?
since it's
Things
so
go-
new,
so-
there's nothing, things that were going on, like, let's just say the Ockham Industrial Center, we knew that was sort of happening, everyone had been talking about that for a while, so that's kind of in the plan too about that, so.
Just the fact that this is happening right now is 4 years ahead of the last POCD.
Yeah,
This
like-
body didn't meet from 2013 to
2017, and like we said, and I was like, and that was when I started here, was one of the first questions I had in 2016, I'm like, well, who's meeting? And they're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, you have an implementation, you need to have it, implement. So that's where we started again, and then worked on that all the way until, 2021, and then we turned it, flipped over and made the POCD committee that was working on creating the plan. So it kind of goes from implementation, and as you get closer to the end of your plan, you start working on the new plan, the 10-year plan. So, so we'll be working on this a good 8 years, at this point. And then this committee mostly is going to flip over to working on the next plan. Okay, and also right now, the plan is really fresh and new. I think we've got great ideas in here. Now it's making those things happen that are in here. And this, again, this is a long-term goal for the city. It's going in the right direction. How do we want to succeed economically, socially, and our housing stock, anything you think of our road, our infrastructure, everything is in this plan.
Yeah.
In the schools even, we touched a little bit on the schools, which a lot of plans don't.
Yeah, and your meetings are sort of gonna benchmark your progress as you go, I'm assuming.
Yeah, so
Okay.
that's kind of what we, so since we're starting this, our first meeting,
Yeah.
we're just gonna start going through, we want to continue to go
Yeah.
through these. And then as we're doing successes, one of the things that we've done in the past, and it worked, the committees, as you know that these are your tasks, you report out on where you're at. And so if they're done, like some tasks that you have done, you're done with that, then we can cross that tab, that's done. And then at the end, like you said, benchmarks, we can report out and work on new plans. We don't need those in the new plans because we already did those. But a lot of things like making businesses successful and doing marketing and those things, they're always going to be something we need to work on. In
All
marketing.
changes you go forward also.
Well,
Right.
yes.
As you add in things that come
Yes.
up with.
yeah, but to change your POCD within
No,
that
I
time frame,
understand.
you have to go through
Yeah.
the whole process. So it's hard to say, we're just gonna change this one thing because you literally have to do the same process that you do as if you're adopting the whole plan. So it doesn't encourage communities to really to do that, to open it up, because you really have to, go through the same process.
Very good.
But in between, if anyone has any thoughts or, you're like, wow, this is a really great read, and you look through and you have some comments or whatever, you can email me and we can, have a record of that for the next meeting or whatever.
And it's online, and we don't print it out because it costs so much money to print all the copies now, but if you want to print it out, obviously there's a PDF online. And that's how it is. I mean, if somebody, 1 or 2 copies is fine, but if in the committee of 15 of us or whatever, 20 of us wanted it, it would cost, I think I got a price of over $1,000 to run them or something. It was ridiculous. Yeah.
Any final comments here or online? Anybody left online?
Somebody just did.
So, just a quick question. And I didn't notice it before, but what we didn't vote on, the minutes we didn't vote on tonight were the minutes from October 2021.
You did.
We did.
We did. We ended up doing that.
we had, okay, so we had that discussion about, that was from 3 years ago.
No, 24 is a misprint, right?
No,
No,
it was not.
2021 was the last
Oh,
meeting
20
of the
It was the
implementation committee.
October third.
It's the 13th. was it?
So the implementation committee hasn't met for almost 3 years because it went from implementation to committee
development.
working on and
Anyway,
planning it.
Okay,
So this is now, so there's two separate commissions and so, but they're basically the same numbers.
okay.
So what's happening is this is the last one before we flipped over to working on the plan. Okay,
Okay, yep, sorry. Okay.
all right,
Okay, motion for adjournment,
Come on,
Tucker,
Parker,
no second.
thank you, second,
Jim,
all in favor?
All right.
Aye.
I
That was
thank
it.
you very
Yeah,
much.